In 2024, cocoa prices exploded, and the reality of chocolate shattered as we know it. As consumer costs went up, the quality and quantity of chocolate somehow started going down, and most companies are completely getting away with it. Chocolate giants are building a house of cards with their quick fix solutions to addressing the cocoa crisis. And when it comes crashing down, the world of chocolate will never be the same. What in the world is going on with chocolate? Get ready to strap in because we're about to find out. A report released in 2025 predicted that the Ivory Coast is set to face a 40% drop in cacao yield this year. The predicted decline in cacao production is vastly a result of our changing climate. As such, unpredictable weather conditions are a recipe for diseases that wipe out entire cacao tree populations. Seeing as the Ivory Coast is the world's top producer of cacao, this deficit is a huge problem.
That deficit has to go somewhere else, right? And so we're now seeing buyers entering markets like South America, Central America, saying we'll pay you whatever it takes to get anything resembling a cocoa bean. Green, unripe, pod, anything that's like starting to form on a tree, cut it off, sell it, and they'll pay whatever price it takes.
Cocoa beans that are unripe and of poor quality are making their way into our chocolate bars. And though you'd think you'd be able to clearly taste sour and tart differences between terrible beans and high-quality ones, chocolate companies are able to mask these undesirable attributes by tapping into a trick long utilized by American chocolate companies: additives.
You really don't need more than 2 ingredients in chocolate. You start with cacao, and you add some sugar and you grind it up, and you end up with chocolate. Adding these extra things in there, really what you're trying to do is reduce your cost as a manufacturer. With that, you're losing the quantity and you're losing quality. So when you think of a cacao bean and the nibs, inside standard is 50% cocoa powder and 50% cocoa butter. When you heat up cocoa butter, it melts, and that's what gives it that nice texture in your mouth. But the commodity chocolate side of things realize they can make more money oftentimes pressing out that cocoa butter and selling it off to like cosmetic companies. And then they add in soy oils, they add in palm oils, they add in all this other stuff. That's a lot cheaper to produce and manufacture.
The minimum amount of cocoa a product in the US can have in it to be considered milk chocolate is 10%. For countries that follow the UN's guidelines, it has to be at least 25%. And if you want to label something as just chocolate or dark chocolate, the number climbs even higher. So when companies change their recipes and decide to use less than 10% cocoa in their products, they lose the right to call it milk chocolate and instead have to modify their wording to say things like chocolatey candy.
Really, most of us Americans don't realize the depth that chocolate has. We don't realize the flavor notes and profiles that it has. We don't realize the texture and feel that each bean and origin can have.
When you purchase a chocolate bar from a maker like Third Wave Chocolate, you'll notice unique flavor descriptions on the bars, like banana bread and brown sugar, or guava pear and spice. Despite there being zero artificial additives or any ingredients beyond cocoa and sugar, the flavors of these bars are spot on. So how do you find these types of chocolates?
I would really encourage people to look and see if they have any local chocolate makers. There's chocolate makers out there, they're putting in a lot of hard work to bring these products to market. I really hope and want consumers out there to know that that's happening.
Beyond the bar, it's also important to ask where your chocolate's cocoa is coming from. Certain brands like Rocca Chocolate print sourcing information right on their wrapper for consumers to read as they enjoy their chocolate. Other companies like Tony's Chocolonely have built huge successful brands in guaranteeing that their cocoa is sourced without slave labor, which unfortunately is still fairly common in the cocoa industry today. Ethical labels on packaging can also help consumers understand a chocolate bar's background. Fair trade labels, for instance, ensure that cocoa farmers are paid a fair price for their harvests and work in decent conditions. Other brands may opt for direct trade, which, though it doesn't have a fancy logo, is a practice in which the chocolate maker works directly with farmers to work out a fair price. Bibamba Artisan Chocolate is one example of a company that purchased land in Cameroon to grow cacao specifically for their marketplace in Denver, Colorado. Though they are thousands of miles away from their farm, they have strong input in how the farm is run, and they can make sure that their farm family is taken care of. For chocolate makers without the means to purchase their own farms, though, traders like Uncommon Cacao establish relationships with farmers around the world and sell a variety of cocoa with transparency so chocolate makers can more easily access beans that are high quality and ethically sourced. Chocolates that are a majority cocoa and ethically sourced are going to cost more. But in a way, our purchasing decisions are basically a vote for what we value and what we want to see as customers.
As consumers, we have the loudest voice, and if we eventually take a stand and say, hey, we're tired of slave labor, especially in chocolate, it's going to make a difference.
Power of purse, you know? We all choose different things, I think, what we spend our money on, and it's not going to be chocolate for everyone, but yeah, where we choose to spend our money can really support the politics, the environment, the treatment of people.
You know, to try to convince you to pay the higher price, I think let the bars speak for themselves. I'd put a single origin, high quality bar next to your regular commodity grocery store bar. Maybe do a blind taste test and see which one is more interesting to you.
So next time your chocolate cravings hit, see if you can find any craft chocolate makers in your area. Not only will your palate thank you, but you can feel good knowing that your purchase comes with a vote that supports products that are ethically made and lend to a more sustainable future.